I haven't done any 3D printing in a while, but my recent tournament list lacked mobility, and I wanted to add some 6-pounder Portees. The problem is, I've wanted Portees for ages, but they're early war vehicles and out of production. But I did find a 3D file for one on Thingiverse. Time to dust off the 3D printer and give it a stab. Here's the Thingiverse file. The search for Portee pulls up a few things, including a 2-pounder Portee in 1/100th scale and a 37mm Morris C8 in 1/72nd. There's even a cut-down Matador truck Portee for a 25-pounder gun. But the one I'm looking for is this one, a 1/100th scale 6-pounder Portee. The downloads come with a supported 6-pounder anti-tank gun and a supported truck. The truck is a cut-down Canadian military pattern 30 hundredweight truck. This model has been remixed from the one in the 2-pounder 3D file. The supports are designed to secure the model to the build plate as it's being printed. There are also unsupported versions of the models if you prefer to support them yourself. Here's a preview of the supported truck STL file. This is the one I'm going to be printing. I've ordered some Battlefront 6-pounder guns to go on the truck bed, so I don't need to print the guns, just the trucks. The pre-supported model worked fine for me. To print the STL file, it needs to be sliced. I've opened it in Photon Workshop, the program supplied by Anycubic, my 3D printer's manufacturer. Once I slice it, this creates the instructions for each slice of the model that will be printed. These slices build up one on top of the other until the print is finished. The settings in the slicer will be different for different 3D printers. Mine's an Anycubic Photon Mono resin printer. Then I just transfer the sliced file onto a USB drive and start the print. While the printer is doing its thing, let's talk about what a Portee is and why I want them. As tank armour became thicker, anti-tank guns had to become bigger and heavier. While the 2-pounder British anti-tank gun we're looking at here is usually towed by a small truck, it can be easily manhandled and even lifted by its crew. But towing over rough ground can be difficult, so guns were sometimes winched onto the truck bed and carried this way, on Portee. They could even be fired this way. This improved the mobility of the guns enormously, useful in the more fluid warfare of blitzkrieg. Portees were popular with British forces. Various guns were mounted on the back of an even larger variety of trucks. Porteed guns were particularly useful over the long distances of the North African desert. As the 8th Army received 6-pounder guns, these were mounted onto Bedford QLT, Austin K5, Chevrolet C60 and Ford F60 trucks. The trucks' cabs were cut down to save weight, and steel channels allowed the guns to be winched on and off the truck bed. While the guns were often dismounted for action, they could also be fired from the vehicle. Ammunition was stowed on the truck wherever there was room. The 6-pounder gun is a very useful weapon, and for me, I want to add the mobility of a Portee to my mid-war British Flames of War army. Here's the print. This one has had the supports removed, and I've put the Battlefront 6-pounder gun on the bed. The Portee on the right is still as it came off the build plate, supports and all. These need to be snipped away to just leave the model behind. Because the Battlefront 6-pounder guns weren't designed to fit this 3D model, the wheelbase doesn't quite match. I fixed this by trimming away a little bit of the inside wall of the wheel channel on the truck bed. This is easy to do, and you can't see it when the gun's fitted. I'll have to do this to all the chassis. The 3D model is a bit basic and doesn't have any crew. I can use the gun crew from the 6-pounder box for gunners, and I'm sure I've got some drivers and passengers in the bits box. The trucks also typically carried a lot of stowage. I think the bits box can help here too. Battlefront's old Portee kit had an ammunition rack over the cab area and optional side shields for the gun. I can live without these, I think. The 6-pounder Portee was an option for various mid-war lists in Flames of War version 3. Here's an 8th Army anti-tank platoon from the North Africa book. You could take up to 3 2-gun sections per platoon. That's a lot of guns. In version 4, it's a bit different. You need to take a 6-pounder anti-tank gun platoon like this one, and then use a command card to modify the unit into Portees. If you go into the Armoured Fist command cards on Forces, the option's here. It costs 1 point to add Portee capability. The 6-pounder guns become unarmoured tank teams with a 4+ save, but they lose the gun shield rule. The guns get a movement speed. It's not fast and the cross is a 5+, but they are heavy guns balanced on the back of a truck, so that's probably pretty reasonable. You only get one 6-pounder anti-tank platoon as a support choice, and there's another in formation support. But if you take a rifle company, there are 2 platoons of 6-pounder guns within the company. Unfortunately, these platoons are all limited to 4 guns maximum, but that's still enough to do some damage. The 18-9 gun in mid-war is pretty good. It's just a shame you can't Portee the later 17-25-pounder anti-tank guns. Anyway, that's my Portee project. I was happy with how it turned out. The pre-supported truck files printed fine for me. While 6-pounder guns were also supplied to print, I wanted to use the Battlefront plastic guns to match the ones in my existing force. Only minor modifications were required to the truck bed to accommodate the plastic guns. So, I've finally got some Portee 6-pounders for Flames of War. Have I inspired you to print some for yourself? Do you have any suggestions about how I could dress these simple models up? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you next time.